Hey,
Looks like it's working.
I hope so. Um, this is all pretty new to me, all of this. The Facebook Live and Zoom is a little bit persnickety, but I hope those of you out there are watching us, and I'm welcoming everyone back to Divan-A-Thon. And Divan-A-Thon is a series meant to have couch conversations with filmmakers about their films. Last week we launched the first series, and it just so happens that we also were talking about senior resilience. And today I'm really excited to welcome Leah Warshawski, filmmaker extraordinaire. Her film Big Sonia premiered at the Seattle Jewish Film Festival in Seattle. It had already had premieres other places, but we were really thrilled to have it as our closing night film. And today I really wanted Leah, who's been touring this film around for now 3 years since it premiered. Yep, just about 3 or 4 years. And you are an amazing ambassador for both Sonia, for the film, and also because the film is so much about today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom Hashoah. And I very much thought it would be a great conversation for us to have to talk a little bit about, as a granddaughter of a survivor, in particular, one who has really captured their story, something that all of us wish that we could do or have done or would be able to do. It's a big task to try to interview a survivor. I just wanted to ask a little bit about what, after this time, does Holocaust Remembrance Day kind of mean for you? And at this time in particular, when seniors are struggling and isolated, and in particular, Sonia's resilience and verve and what makes her so big is such a testament to what one little person can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because anyone who, is in a family of survivors will tell you that Holocaust Remembrance Day is really like every single day of the year, every day of their life. And we're reminded of it constantly. And we grow up hearing the stories. And, if you've been to Hebrew school, certainly heard a lot of stories and learned a lot about the Holocaust. And so it's always kind of interesting to me that there's a day we're supposed to think about it, because most people in my family, and a lot of people I know think about it every single day of their life. So it's interesting now because this is, April's the month, last week when Sonia was liberated from Bergen-Belsen, and she's stuck in her house at the moment. Although, I talked to her recently and she she agreed that it's better than being in a concentration camp. So that's a step in the right direction. But, it's just such an interesting time in our world. There's no way to compare, being quarantined now with being in a concentration camp. It's apples and oranges. There's absolutely no way to compare it. But it is unfortunate that, a lot of people, a lot of survivors like Sonia, can't be around family. They can't leave the house. They can't have the community that they've relied on. And that's really sad that, a lot of people are going to die now, after everything that they've been through. This is, just really unfortunate.
So I'm just curious, I don't know how many people watching have seen the film. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about Big Sonia as a film. And as a child and your mom has spent quite a bit of time touring with her through schools. So what made this a documentary that you wanted to make?
Well, my dad is Maury. My dad is Sonia's son. Yes. So then my two aunts, Regina and Debbie, and Regina is the one who's sort of taken on the touring with Sonia as much as possible, created a really great PowerPoint with history, information, and historical context. So she's really what made, what allows Sonia to go out and do the speaking, is because she has Regina's support and help. The film Big Sonia is about a tiny 94-year-old Holocaust survivor who is making a big impact in the world in unusual ways today. So yes, she had a tragic and horrific past, but the film is really about her present and how people can relate what she went through to some aspect of their lives. So we follow her as she goes into schools and prisons and works every day at her little tiny tailor shop in the corner of a dead mall in suburban Kansas City. And when the shop has to close, when she gets an eviction notice because the mall is going to be bulldozed, what will she do? You know, at 90, how will she reinvent herself? What will she do to keep the dark parts away, as she calls them? How do you gain resilience and optimism after going through something so horrific?
Not every survivor is willing to tell their story. And the part of the triumph of Sonia is that she seems to be able to almost ad infinitum, right? She loves talking to students. She is portrayed in the film as someone who has ease. I know your conversation with Marcy Silman, for example, her ability to articulate her experience. And I've done oral history with survivors, and usually that takes 5 hours. And so I'm just kind of wondering what was the process of having her tell her story? And I know, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we had like over 600 hours of footage, you know, with Sonia. So it was not a quick process. There's nothing quick about this film. We had Todd Soliday, my husband, I married an editor, so that was smart of me. But we had so much footage to go through because nothing is short. She can't tell a short story, and memory is a subjective thing. And we worked really hard to get the most pertinent bits of her story. We created animation for those historical sections, and it was painstaking. If you, being a director and producer, like, you understand, when you see a film, you can see what had to be produced, and we really had to produce this film very carefully to make sure that we were getting in everything we needed to, but not too much. And in some cases had to have her go back and tell us things multiple times or in a different way, or even script out some of the things that she had told us, maybe just so that we could keep the film under 93 minutes. That was that was hard. If you know Sonia, which, you've met her, you understand that she loves to talk, and fortunately she is telling her story now, and to anyone who will listen. So that was, for us as filmmakers, that was really a benefit. We couldn't have made this film without Sonia as a willing participant.
Amazingly, I just wanted to, share an image from Sonia at the Seattle Jewish Film Festival.
Oh yeah, that's
One of
great.
my favorite photos of her,
So great.
because the moment of her taking, everyone wanted a selfie with her. She
Right.
was such a rock star at the film festival. But I think that I've heard you speak about with her and without her and with Todd is this triumph of love over hate. And I think that that is also her message to many students that she affects in telling her story. And I've heard you interviewed where you said not many of us, or even my children, will get the chance to meet a Holocaust survivor. And part of your film is about the way that she has an impact on people and that experience. Now, I'd say on one side of it, I'd love to know the impact on your family. We've talked about this previously, how hard it is to grow up the child and grandchildren of a survivor. There's trauma and challenges there, but also on the flip side, that impact that she has on people is indelible. And so what does Sonia's message say about these times for you? And these 3 years you've been traveling, how has that transformed?
Well, I mean, right now, I think everyone is thinking about resilience and taking care of your community and taking care of your neighbors, and just trying to have, even more compassion and empathy and love for humans and the earth that we're living on. And because I don't know what the alternative is. I think the alternative is crawl into a cave and go back into the hole, which plenty of days I would rather do, to be honest. But I just don't think, for her, that's not an option. She's made a decision to be out in the world and tell her story, and, you know, when she can go into work every day. And I think now, you know, it's a really important film to watch. And I think she gives a lot of people hope, and her example of resilience. And resilience isn't something necessarily that you are born with. I mean, some people have it innately more than others, but I've learned recently that you can build it. You know, you can build optimism, you can build resilience. And she is a shining example of that. And I think that's something people could really use now. And people are rewatching the film, and we're doing all these Q&As, and it's become, again, important because everyone's looking for this example of how to get through whatever you're getting through. And it's not 100% about the Holocaust. Of course, everything is about the Holocaust, and everything isn't about the Holocaust, but people see her as, you know, an example of what's possible after you've been through something. And I think we can all agree that every single one of us is going through something right now, some form of trauma at some level, whether it's past or present. Mm-hmm. So ironically, the film Big Sonia just keeps getting more and more relevant. And, we premiered it one day after the election in 2016. So
yes,
on that day, it was like, so people were kind of walking around like zombies and not really sure what to do. And, you know, very kind of depressed and hopeless. And here we are today, you know, so the film has just been really a great tool for our time, you know, in the last couple of years.
I'm only showing everybody this poster from a film that I had seen of yours previously at SIF, Finding Hollywood, but it seems I hadn't realized that the tagline, "The Power of Film to Heal," seems to be, at least for your documentary film as opposed to your commercial side, is something that you clearly have resonated with. And I'm just wondering then, does film have the power to heal?
Oh, absolutely. And when we made Finding Hollywood, the film Big Sonia was not even a glint in our eye.
Can you tell people a little bit about Finding Hollywood?
Yeah, so Finding Hollywood, we premiered at SIF in 2013, and it's a documentary about the very beginning of the film economy, the film industry, film economy in Rwanda, East Africa. So we were speaking with survivors of genocide and generations, and the whole time we're doing this, and we're talking about genocide and Holocaust and healing and trauma. Ironically, we were not thinking about making Big Sonia at all. I wasn't even really relating it to my own family. But yeah, there's that theme that runs through a lot of the things that we do. Certainly our two feature films, Finding Hollywood and Big Sonia, and some of the, commercial is commercial. Some of the storytelling we do is about healing and resilience. And it's certainly something that we gravitate towards. I think that's because of, family history, and just understanding and getting to know other people and cultures, and having, traveled around the world, and understanding that there's so much trauma that people are dealing with. And yes, film does have the power to heal. We've seen that. I mean, we saw that in Rwanda. We saw that in Finding Hollywood, without a doubt. And we see that every time we show Big Sonia. When we're fortunate enough to be in the audience, or, do Q&As afterwards, or even like on these kinds of, on the online Q&As, we still have people telling us how the film has been healing for them, and how the film is changing their life, and people having an emotional connection to something, experiencing something that changes their lives and heals them in a way. Big Sonia is particularly healing because there's something about the film that everyone can relate to their own life.
Yeah.
So that's been a blessing.
So I think though that it takes a tremendous amount to, as we're all sheltering in, to be with our families in general. And just to kind of turn this a little bit to, family. I mean, you and Todd work together as a husband and wife, team. And Sonia was really introduced into the dynamic of your relationship, your family dynamics. There might be people who are watching that are interested in small ways and big ways to capture their own family stories. What are the ways that people can navigate those dynamics or capture it in any small way? What are ways people can do that?
Well, there's a lot of ways you can capture, you can do audio interviews, you can do video interviews. We're talking with a company now called Storyfile, which I highly recommend looking up because they're doing some cool stuff with technology that is kind of legacy storytelling. I don't want to say hologram, but that's what most people would call it, holograms, where you can actually ask people questions and they respond to you. And they've been doing this with Holocaust survivors for the Shoah Foundation. And if we can raise the money, we want to do it with Sonia. But so the things like that are popping up. I would say, don't ever make a film about your family. And you should definitely make a film about your family. It's the two, how do you hold the two things in concert with each other? That's tough as a filmmaker. That's tough as a, director, producer. It's really, there's a lot of added stress and anxiety and pressure, I think, that comes with making a film about your family. I was in a good position to do it. Emotionally and physically, I think, but it took a huge toll on me and our relationship, and it took a huge toll, and I don't regret any of it. I'm really grateful for everything, even the challenges along the way, but I did have, it was really, really difficult, more difficult than anything else I've ever done. So if you're not going to make a feature film and all you are trying to do is just provide some documentation and archives so that your family will live on and you can keep telling these stories, I think it would be a lot easier to just sit down and really spend time to do the interviews. My dad did audio interviews with his family when he was, I think, in his 20s. And I listened to those tapes. I had those, and he made transcripts of them. And when they're gone, they're gone. You can't get people back. So any way possible to record them, I think, is really valuable.
Yeah, I wanted to say that there are some resources in our own city, obviously, and online. I think Jewish Women's Archive, jwa.org, has 10 questions for the Jewish woman in your life.
Yeah, that's great.
But I do believe that it is intimidating, but many people don't want to be the shoemaker's daughters who have no shoes, literally.
Right.
You come from a family that thinks about documentary film already. And so, I'm curious to know, your dad has written a precedent-setting book, which you are the embodiment of, but probably of your own volition, Shaking the Money Tree. But I think it says less about the money part and part of just your stick-to-itiveness and your passion for what you do. We started this conversation before we went online, talking a little bit about, family, but how did the relationship to your father and your family in general affected? He plays an important role in the film, and reading back on his old poems and really breaking down. But how did you decide not to be the shoemaker's daughter who had no shoe?
Well, my dad told me, never make a documentary. So he gave me two pieces of advice: never make a documentary, and don't get too close to your grandmother. So there we go. I mean, my dad, he literally wrote the book on how to fundraise for film, and we still didn't have an easier time raising for this one or finding Hollywood. We followed all the protocols, but it just goes to show it's so difficult to to finish a film. And I think it just keeps getting harder. It's supposed to get easier, but it hasn't gotten that much easier. Things are constantly changing. And in terms of the relationship with my family, you know, no one in my family wanted to be in the movie except for Sonya. And when Sonya saw the movie, she didn't realize that there were other people in it because she thought we were just making the film about her for 6-7 years. Even though, you know, we told her, we showed her things along the way. So she was quite surprised. And fortunately, you know, my family gave in and trusted us enough to be in the movie. And the scene with my dad, you know, really is the most impactful scene for many, many people who watch the film. So, you know, having Regina and Debbie in the movie, you know, talking about their experience growing up as second generation, you know, we could not have made this film without them, without their support, and without them trusting us. So all that to say, you know, it's also the most time that I've ever spent with my family was making the movie. And that's probably why we could do it. Because we had a little bit of separation. We didn't live in the same place. We were just far enough removed that we could do it. And it has brought everybody closer in our own way. I know that they're proud of the film and they're really glad that they did it. And they're really, because they've seen the impact over the last couple of years, and that's really validating for them. But I wouldn't say that it's tied everything up in a nice little bow. I think we just have a lot more understanding for each other now.
So I'm curious to know a little bit more about this. Your big Sonia tour it's had longevity, it's had turns in the road. Can you tell us a little bit about the last 3 years? Because making the film itself was a long and arduous process, but
I don't think we didn't expect anything. Everything that's happened, I'd say 90% of the things that have happened have been not what we planned or expected. So, you know, like I said, we premiered November 9, 2016. We didn't expect the turnout of the election to be what it was. So that was our biggest day one kind of assessment of, okay, what are we going to do now? Like, it was so nobody expected what happened. So we had thought that would be the end, surely, of our movie. No one's going to come out and see it. No one's going to want to watch it. But turns out that maybe was the best thing that could have happened, because people were looking for hope. They were looking for resilience. They were looking for something, you know, that would make them feel good. And Big Sonia makes you feel good. I mean, there's no way around it. It makes you leave the theater and you feel good, and you feel closer to your family, closer to your friends. You want to call your mother or your father or someone you haven't talked to in a long time. So it's really been a great tool for us the last couple of years to open up some interesting and tough conversations. So we spent 2 years on the road with the film, screening it at festivals, Jewish film festivals and non-Jewish film festivals. We just went gangbusters and we did everything all at the same time. We did a year of theatrical screenings starting in New York and LA, and then we qualified the film for an Academy Award, which was important to us. It was important to Sonia, and it was important to our supporters that we did that. So we went through the whole campaign for that. And Sonia's still disappointed that she didn't win anything. I don't think we'll ever hear the end of that. She doesn't understand why she might not be eligible this year or next year. So, but that was a great process. We are still doing, the film it's available digitally now, but we created an education package for it that we're selling to schools and organizations. And that's really right now our focus is education. And how do we get this package and all of our curriculum materials into schools, which is tough right now because no one's in school, but we have digital assets. I think we are about to start fundraising again for Sonia to be one of these New Dimensions and Testimony videos. So Sonia would live on forever and ever, even though she lives on in our film forever. This would be an official, hologram style interview with her like they've done for Shoah Foundation. It's costly, but there was recently a segment on 60 Minutes about this program. And we got so many calls and so many emails and so many people saying, Sonia needs to do this. And we know Sonia needs to do it, but it's been cost prohibitive. So it seems weird because this is not a great time to raise money. However, it may be more about passion and interest than timing for us. And we're about to test that and see if it's something people are interested in enough to support. And how crazy would it be for Sonia to live on in eternity, literally, you know, answering questions forever and ever and ever.
In living color. She is a fabulous, colorful
in living color, yeah.
person. So I think what I wanted to sort of maybe close this interview about, two things you mentioned is, first of all, survivors and telling their stories, the hologram aspect of it. All of us are living in Zoom, this altered reality in general, but it seems that it's important to just do what you can and get those stories told. What does it mean for you as a filmmaker right now that the outlets that you normally have to touch students, for Sonia to reach people, for you to reach people, show your films, what's happening in the filmmaker world for you right now?
Well, I think it's actually opening up some new opportunities for us and where we are at with the film. I kind of had a mental breakdown initially because we're trying to promote our education package to schools and school districts and educators, and nobody's in school. It doesn't look like anyone's going back, maybe even for the fall in some cases. And so we had built this impact campaign based around getting the film package to schools, and that kind of came to a screeching halt, and I wasn't quite sure how that was going to play out for us. But over the last couple of weeks, you know, it's given us new opportunities to do Q&As like this on Zoom. I've got a bunch more scheduled. We done 2 last week. We're reaching new audience that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. I mean, we had an encore theatrical run scheduled for this week and next week in Kansas City, had to cancel that. We had a big education fundraiser on May 3rd, canceled that. So now we're sort of just having to reconfigure, think out of the box, and use what we have. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned, and that I'm kind of recommending to other people, is that you need to take inventory of what you have already versus trying to reinvent the wheel or create a new widget. I mean, in some cases people can do that, but in most cases, I think we need to look at the assets that we have and the audience that we have and the connections that we have now and figure out how are we going to optimize everything, so that we're not spending a ton of money and energy on something that's not really going to help us reach our goals. So yeah. I'm hopeful, and I'm really grateful for you, and festivals and people who are embracing this technology and just saying, screw it, we're going to figure something out. Yeah. Because some conversation is better than no conversation. And honestly, we've been able to reconnect with people and do interviews and reach new audience that we would not be doing otherwise. Yeah.
So much of these interviews are with filmmakers, and here we are with Sonia. This is the team that was presenting the Seattle. We had to sideline the Seattle Jewish Film Festival, our 25th anniversary this year, but my sister's a high school history teacher in St. Louis, and she did not know about your film. And
wow. I went to high school in St. Louis.
In St. Louis, and she teaches AP history. And
that's
so
great.
She's now seen your film, and a lot of these taped recordings will give her assets to give to her students if it bypassed the St. Louis Jewish Film Festival, or if it bypassed their international film festival.
Yeah, that would be great.
So I'm just curious to just sort of close. I'm sure a lot of folks would like to know. I've asked, by the way, if folks can ask questions, you can submit them through the Q&A in the chat room, or you can go to the Q&A button and submit a couple of questions. But if you could tell us a little bit about what's next for you in your dream world. I know you're taking some classes right now and sort of passions. But But how does one transition from film to film? It's you're birthing a baby and yet you're also raising it at the same time. And how do you start looking to the next moment?
Well,
What's going on?
yeah, we're working on another documentary called One Grand about a luthier, someone who makes guitars and ukuleles in Maui. And he just made his 1000th instrument. It's kind of a Rain Man of sorts, really interesting character with a broad audience and broad appeal, works with a lot of celebrities to make their instruments. And so that's something a little different, but close to where we are in Hawaii. So we started that, but we're funded to make the trailer, and everything else depends on funding. So I don't know what's going to happen in this landscape, if we're going to come out of this and people are going to start funding films again. I mean, I know the film industry is shut down completely. I don't know how quickly that's going to come back. So, we're documentary filmmakers are scrappy hustlers, and in that vein, yeah, I'm taking a bunch of different classes online. I'm trying to gain some new kind of digital certifications and digital skills. As much as I don't want to be at the computer, I'm not sure what else, I can do to supplement. So doing that over the next year, doing a lot of consulting, helping other filmmakers figure out what the path forward is going to be. And for us, Big Sonia was kind of an anomaly. It was about my family. It was, we felt really, really strong about making that film and finishing the film, Hell or High Water. And we made it work. But I don't think I have, after 20 years, after the last 20 years, of making films and documentaries and raising money for films and documentaries, I think, I'm really focused on just taking on projects that are funded or have, funding in place that's a reality. I think I'm still fundraising for Big Sonia. It's been how long? So for me, I can really only focus on raising money for one big project at a time. And this is going to be my focus for the next couple of years, I imagine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize what it takes to obviously make a film, fundraise for it, I think I served on the For Culture panel that helped with some funds for your animation, which is incredible. Yeah. And some of the doodling that Sonia did is in the film, which is incredible. You had original songs in the film, curriculum guidance. So I'm just going to put in a quick plug that next Tuesday, I'm interviewing another local filmmaker, a woman named Lisa Cohen, who is in the process of moving from a short film about bullying to a feature film about bullying. Her film, Confessions of a Former Bully, is now within the Seattle public school system, but she's working on curriculum guide. It takes so much, and I've watched my friends, filmmakers like you, bring brilliant films that we get to exhibit to the community. But ultimately, we're in the service of you and helping you tell your story. But hats off to you for Big Sonia, and it's an incredible film that keeps on giving. I know it's available in different formats, like a 50-minute and a longer format. If you haven't seen the film, will you let us know a little bit about where people can learn more about Big Sonia and your work?
Yeah, and that reminds me, one of the things that we're also working on right now is international broadcast. So we have 3 versions of the movie. We have the feature film that's available online. So Amazon Prime, Canopy, if you have a library card, and Vimeo, which is my preference. And then we have a broadcast, an international broadcast version that was premiered on Russian television and will soon be on Polish television. We're working on other territories with that. And then we have a 45-minute educational cut for teachers that comes with our education package. So all of this our website, bigsonia.com, is a clearinghouse. Everything is on our website. It's a one-stop shop. And those are we have plenty of ways to see it. If you are a teacher and you can help us get this into schools in your district or even schools, we're happy to give a discount on the education package. Right now, if you just reach out to us, we will work something out, because that's, you know, education is our biggest goal at the moment. So just send us a note and we'll figure out how to make it happen.
If you were to guesstimate how many people have seen the film at this point, what kind of numbers would you put it at?
I would say a few 100,000.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, for talking to us about
Thank
Big Sonia. Amazingly, she continues to be a vibrant force in the world. And I know she's still appearing with you at some of these.
Well, we'll see what happens after this. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that the one last thing that I just want to say is that the film, if you haven't seen it, is truly set apart from, as somebody who's probably seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films about the subject, or families interviewing other family members, this is possibly the best documentary film I've ever seen about a survivor. It's both about her personality, but how you look at the steering wheel in this image, the way that you manage to extract, the word would be synecdoche. It's just the pieces of a person and her car, her tailor shop. There's something about your filmmaking that just showed so much about the life and the cinematography. And it's truly a gem. And congratulations again, 3 years later. So great. Thank you so much for joining us. And all the best to you. Let's talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Pamela.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.